Hi, Sharon here with another episode of Mac Senior on the Road. This one was so much fun. I went bird watching through the Lafayette Senior Center and I want to take you with me. I asked Ben to share with me how he got into bird watching in the first place.
Well, it started back in the very late 90s. I had a neighbor who had bird feeders, and we did quite a bit of associating, and I used to see them be impressed by all the birds that came to his place. But it didn't really start until after I retired at the end of 2001. At that time, my neighbor was getting into a divorce, and he eventually had to sell the house. And he packed up his bird feeders, and all of a sudden the whole neighborhood was full of birds looking for food, wondering what had happened. So I realized the distress they were in and went down to Target and bought some bird feeders and some bird seeds and hung them up, and that's how I got started with birds. Eventually I joined the Audubon Society, and I got to know Phil Gordon, the naturalist, who basically has taught me everything I know about birds to this point. And that's basically where we're at now. One day on a walk or hike, I dropped in at the Lafayette Community Center to chat with Maureen, and we had talked about her starting a birdwatch group for seniors, but she was not able to find anybody qualified that would do it for the right price, or for the price that the city was willing to offer. So one day, stopping in, I said, okay, what about I do the bird watch for you? And she just jumped at that, and she thought that was a great idea, and here we are. We've been going out doing our bird watches for 5 or 6 years now. And that's basically it.
So here we are, we all gathered in Alameda, and we're getting ready here to go down to the shore and see how many birds we can see. It's a really nice area. I had never been there before, but they have nature walks, and this was the first thing we saw. I didn't get it on my camera, but I have all the names of the birds. Ben was kind enough to fill me in. It was so bright out there that I really couldn't see through my viewfinder, and so I just sort of pointed my camera in the direction that they were saying, oh, look, there's a long-billed curlew, which I had never even heard of before, or a black-bellied plover. It was just really wonderful. So Ben helped me identify all of these different birds, and this was a really sweet one. It bobs its head up and down all the time. And there's lots of color along the way too. People have their houses right along the shore, and there's these little outposts ever so often where you can watch. And this was a western gull that was sunning himself on the rocks. It was very windy that day, and this is, of course, a view of the city from Alameda. And Ben has this wonderful telescope that he would find the birds, and then we would be able to see a really close-up picture of them. Have you ever heard of godwits? I hadn't. Here's a bunch of them. I think there's a few other things in there. And these are little killdeer, and it's two of them running together. And here's internet image of that bird. I like how they run together. And these are called peeps. I think that's like a nickname though. They're really western sandpipers. And I certainly, of course this is the snowy egret and a bunch of little peeps. But I wasn't able to get close-ups of some of the birds, and luckily someone was smart enough to be taking notes on all of the many different birds that we saw. I'd never heard of the American avocet either, and that's a internet image of it. Very interesting birds. There were just so many different birds. And there's a snowy egret in amongst some avocets. And some of the houses had bird feeders, and these little finches were sure having a good time that day. And these are more of the long-billed curlews. I'd never heard of them, and I don't think I've ever seen this bird either. Aren't they interesting looking? This is a bunch of little house finches. Well, that didn't take long for them to leave. So it's a salt marsh land, and I guess there's not too many of those left. I just wanted you to see what they have there. And boy, it was really hard for me to see those brown pelicans, find them in my viewfinder, but I love the color. And so now we're getting into the birds that we saw that day that I didn't capture on my camera. There was so many of them. We saw 28 different types of birds. And if you think you might like to join Ben and the people that go with him on these trips, he does it every Wednesday. They go to a different place, and sometimes they see a lot of birds. Sometimes they don't see very many, but it's always fun. They're a great group of people, and Ben is so knowledgeable and so great about sharing his knowledge. I know you'd have a good time if you went. So thanks for watching, and I'll be back soon with more episodes of Mac Senior on the Road.